Okay, well, we're talking about Australia's new all-screen reporting and planning database, VOS, which is one of the most important audience measurement and planning initiatives in the world right now. And I'm joined by Nicola Lewis, who is the Chief Investment Officer at Group N for Australia and New Zealand. We have Michael Stevenson, Chief Sales Officer for Nine, and Doug Pfeiffer, the CEO at OzTam. So welcome to you all. And I suppose the first obvious question, really, and I'll put it to you first, Doug, is what is the problem that VOS is actually created to solve?
Well, we've been looking at, and this is not just an Australia thing, it's a global issue. We've been looking at declining linear ratings over the past, 15 years. And we know that BVOD numbers are growing because we've been measuring that for the last 6-7 years through our VPN service. And we haven't had a way to stitch those two numbers together to get that holistic view on how pieces of content and campaigns are working together. And that's been the biggest point of, not point of contention, but that's been the biggest ask from our clients from a broadcast point of view and an agency point of view, saying, show me the number that works together. Show me how these two pieces of content platforms work together in this system. You have both numbers, now stitch it together. And that's what we've done.
Okay. And Nicola, from a buyer perspective, is it what you expected and what you wanted?
Yeah, look, I think it's it's no secret that since 2015, now Doug obviously mentioned 15 years ago, but really the rubber started to hit the road in terms of sort of significant volatility in the TV audience, particularly here in Australia at about 214, 215. And that threw up a lot of questions from clients, is this the erosion of television? Is this the end of television? Is television dead? And for me, that was a really unhelpful and unhealthy narrative. And I'm sure that, many people watching this, this forum would agree with that. And obviously we certainly know that television wasn't dead, but what we were doing was witnessing, the future of TV in full flow, and instead of seeing audiences time shift, either live or on demand or via catch up or streaming services, and I think that coming together as an industry to try and make sure that you could prove the value of those audiences despite the fact that they were shifting, and in actual fact because they were shifting, was really why VOS was created. Total audience program ratings weren't being captured or measured properly together, which really was a missed opportunity for our clients, but obviously also for broadcasters from a commercial perspective. And I think where that gets really important to me is when you think about television, and you think about the breadth of television, and you think about the importance of investment in television and investment in content. If you're not able to commercialize a total audience properly, then you start to get into the realms of not being able to invest in content, which is naturally why you see big audiences still head to television within the linear environment or BVOD environment. So broadly speaking, just looking at historical data and working out what we were going to do moving forward.
Okay, and Michael, from a broadcaster's point of view, just explain what you wanted from it.
Well, I will of course look at this through a commercial lens, and as Doug pointed out, what we have seen, this is no surprise, and we've seen it in Australia, we've seen it in every market around the world. The consumption of our content has changed, or consumer behavior has changed, and our content is now being consumed both live in a live streaming environment, and of course on demand across multiple platforms and multiple devices. And as a result of that sort of change in behavior, what we've seen is advertising revenue move out of the television market towards or into the social video market. Those markets obviously led by Facebook and YouTube. And that sort of transition from the the television market into the social video market has been largely on the premise of social video adding incremental reach to television, their ability to reach light TV viewers, which I always find quite funny. And of course, the premise that it would be cheaper. And our view was that none of those things were true. You can't prove the incremental reach that social video adds to television. If you want to reach light TV viewers, then we have 100% of them. And of course, you need to compare apples with apples when you're looking at costs. So VOS is critically important to us because it does allow you to measure the incremental reach that viewing in an on-demand sense adds to linear television, and that's critical for brands and advertisers.
Okay, and Think TV Australia have been quite, well, they haven't been shy in saying that they are going after the money that went to social, Facebook and Google in particular.
Yeah, I think TV's been around for, for 4 years right now, and we've done a lot of research into the effectiveness of television and video on demand in combination, and that for an advertiser, the return that you get on your advertising dollar is greater when you look at those two in combination than it is the social platforms. So being able to measure the consumption is obviously critical to allow, Nicola and media buyers and clients to be able to buy those audiences.
Okay, and Doug, give us an update on progress then, because I think the full launch is this year for the VOZ database, is that right?
So at the Future TV event that you had here in Sydney in February, we were on stage and we said that April we would put data out, and then this thing called COVID hit, which, our first response from an OzTAM point of view was protect the main currency of the TV ratings in terms of the system and making sure that system was still going forward. So fortunately, a few years ago, we increased our panel by about 50%, so it gave us a nice buffer of households in there. Nielsen did a great job in keeping the panel ticking along at mid 90% in-tab rates, and we suspended the panel turnover so households could stay on the panel up to 6 years. A household was good at that point. We were going to leave them in because we knew that we were going to have a hard time getting to households. So our main focus at that point in time moved to making sure that the daily currency was going to be robust enough to put out numbers, and we've done that. We have got news last night that tonight here in Australia that Victoria, Melbourne will be locked down for another 6 weeks. The cases are rising, so we're going to have a hard time again getting technicians in, so we'll have to play that by ear. But in the meantime, we've been working on VOZ and putting things together. So taking the BVOD data, the CoViewing data from that BVOD and putting it into a system. And at the same time, we announced to the broadcast, to the agencies that we would put it on hold. And I think the response I got back from Nick, you can talk to this, but a lot of the agencies were like, we're shuffling TV spots around, we're chasing clients, we're chasing advertising, and then we really don't need a big data set in our lap at the moment. So where we're at in terms of, I'll come back to that, Nick, but in the next few weeks, we will start putting data to the market, preliminary data. We had a meeting with the Media Federation in Australia today, and we've discussed that launch plan, so dashboards and tools. And then in October, we plan to release the market data, the official data to the market. And there's still a lot of tools that need to be built, and there's still a lot of workflow issues that people will have to go through, but we're very close to going.
Okay, well, just run us through some of the key insights you can offer those. So in terms of helping Nicola or others to find those viewers who are shifting from multi-screen or to multi-screen from sort of television viewing, I mean, just run us through some of the insights that you can get out of the VOZ database.
Yeah, so what we presented back in February, that you could see incremental reach. So you could see light viewers to TV and heavy viewers to BVOD, and that was adding, 4% incremental reach per week. In some of demographics, it was actually higher. Now, having the luxury of having the database and looking at it now, since COVID hits, everything's just changed dramatically, right? So we've seen co-viewing as people get locked into their house and more people at home and people working from home. We saw linear TV growing as most markets did, but we also saw that co-viewing to BVOD went up dramatically. The amount of BVOD went up. We also saw that the number of TV screens, not just TV screens, but any screen coming into the household. So what we were tracking on BVOD measurement, we started to see new devices appearing into our device graph. So more PCs, more desktops. So people were working from home and taking their PCs home and taking their notebooks home. But that was another screen in the household that they were accessing, and it was just adding more reach points going on at this point in time. And that was adding to the minutes as well. So it kind of was playing with our model a little bit, we were seeing before COVID about 1.4 connected co-viewing to connected TVs, and that started to rise dramatically over that period of time. But it also impacted the incremental reach you could get on linear TV, because there was a higher chance that someone was in front of the television set as well as the numbers were going up. So during that period of time, we saw BVOD going up, but some of those viewers were watching together with their family in front of pieces of content. So the incremental reach on a weekly basis. So it kind of threw the trends that we were seeing, early trends, out at the moment.
Okay, I mean, before...
Oh, sorry, I was just going to jump in there. No, I think just to Doug's point, his previous point about delaying the data sets release, we were obviously sort of grappling with COVID and working with each and every one of our clients to understand what that meant for them, for their existing and for their future campaigns, but also really understanding this amazing sort of change in consumption patterns that we were seeing as people were spending much more time at home naturally, and what impact that was having in terms of the big screen in the household, in terms of consumers increasing, going out and buying more hardware, more connected TVs, people that had existing connected TVs actually sitting down and spending time working through how to work their connected TV, and I think, and I sort of say that lightheartedly, but actually, it's a really important factor. And of course, then really understanding the patterns of content consumption, and so I think it kind of goes hand in glove. It's really important to see that, and great to hear that Doug's seen some really clear patterns come out as a result of COVID that we can kind of take into the next tranche of this and as we release it.
I'll just add to that, though, that this is not a COVID thing.
No,
we've seen it accentuated through COVID, but this is just a thing. People are consuming our television content across all of these screens and all of these platforms, and they have been for ages. What Virtual Oz allows us to do is to measure it. And that is critically important, because it again shows the reach that you're able to deliver in today's television, which is of course across all platforms, and therefore its power for advertisers and brands that try to drive their own businesses.
Yeah, and then the figures that I saw, I presume this was before COVID, so this might be the sort of settled figure that you put out earlier in the year, was during a 1 week reach, BVOD added 4.2 incremental reach, 4.2%, so that was the 4 figure you gave us, Doug. And then over 28 days, it was 3% incremental reach, so these are just pure BVOD viewers who didn't watch broadcast TV. So, I mean, Michael, are the findings so far, if we take out the fact that COVID may have distorted things, are they pretty much what you expected, what you kind of suspected already in terms of the incremental reach you gave?
Yeah, I guess it's intuitively what we've all kind of known for a long time, but just kind of intuitively knowing is not good enough. We need to be able to measure this and measure it accurately, and we need a gold standard measurement system that's independently audited and measured, and that's what Nielsen and OzTam do for us right here in Australia. And that gives advertisers and brands a sense of comfort that what they're buying is what they're receiving, and the ability to measure this for the very first time is a game changer.
Yeah, and Nicola, do you see it as a game changer? Does the buying community think that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's why we've sort of come together hand in glove with, all of the broadcasters, obviously, including Steve-O, Think TV, and work through it with Doug, making sure, we're hugely excited to be able to get line of sight into the data set so that we can work through sort of at an individual sort of group level. But absolutely, I think because it does prove that incremental reach that can be achieved, through broadcast. So yeah, absolutely. Pretty excited about it.
Yeah, okay. I think that one of the things we saw as well pre-COVID was the amount of viewing on devices, and you can only assume that it was done outside the household on trains and travel and transport. And then all that stopped and it switched, right? But we were seeing in COVID, you were starting to see BVOD being used on television sets, probably when someone was supposed to be at home doing their work and whatever and taking a break. And it just moved from different devices. And I think that's the beauty of it. We get a chance to see how people are going to consume content over devices when it goes back to normal and things, start to change and we start to see people moving around again and getting back to work, and how that impacts their behavior as well. So we'll see it in linear, we'll see it in the combination of linear and BVOD.
Okay, and Doug, I mean, just talk us through how you demonstrate co-viewing of connected TV in terms of the methodology.
Yeah, so we've got several components that gives us that answer. The first one is we've got 8,000 households with people meters in it nationally. That gives us 20,000 individuals that we measure on a daily basis, minute by minute, right? And so those are the people that are logging in, and we know their demographics. So panels are going to be around for a while because that's where you get really robust demographic information, because you're not making assumptions. And then we have our BVOD measure, we call it VPM, video player measurement, that we know the piece of content. So if someone plays a piece of Michael's content, say The Voice Australia, in VVOD on their connected TV, we know that the TV's on, we know that they're watching The Voice through the VPM service, the BVOD measurement, and then we know how many people are sitting in front of it. And so we start to get some really good information on the types of viewing that people are watching together. Right, and so when we'll start on our VPM, our BVOD measurement service in the next 2 weeks, we'll start putting out co-viewing numbers into that mix, and we'll see the number of minutes go up by about 20 to 25%. Just with more, you've got that many people watching connected TVs is the highest increase that we're seeing, and now you're adding another person, 1.4 to 1.6 more individuals in front of it, so a 20-25% increase in minutes on that side. I think it'll be interesting. For the first time, we're starting to see, at least in this country, other than just a one-to-one connected device. We've always made the assumption that a phone was one-to-one and a tablet was one-to-one, because it's so hard to measure those occasions that there is more than one person sitting in front of it. And now we can start to get those factors and factor that in. And so that'll be interesting from the BVOD, but then when we put it onto VOZ, those numbers go up, because now I have 2 people, 3 people watching The Voice, and I can move that onto VOZ, and we'll see that go up. So yeah, that's how we handle co-viewing. It's through the streaming TV meters, the router meters that we've got as well.
Do you know the demographics of those people then as well?
Yeah, we get that from the people meters in the household. So if they're watching The Voice on Channel 9, we know that it's The Voice. We know that from the streaming TV meter that we put in, and we installed 3,000 of those, we can see that they're watching Channel 9 URL. So that gives us the URL. The BVOD measure that we have gives us the piece of content that it says it's The Voice. And then the people meters give us the demographics of how many people are logged in. Right? And so that combination starts to give us a pretty good indication of the demographics or who in there, who are watching that content.
And that's why Doug answers that question.
Okay. Well, what about combined frequency? Can you also tell us the total frequency across all screens? Or?
Well, you'll be able to get that incremental, and then you can see how people move between screens. And that's what we see early on with the VOZ database, in terms of if you look at a piece of content over a series. So let's just stick with Channel 9's The Voice. So we see some people that watch it religiously on television, and they go home and watch it live linear, and they watch it that way. And then we see some that watch it on time shift to their TV set, and they record it and then play it back. And then we see some people that watch it through streaming back to their television set on many or to other devices. And then in pre-COVID, we were seeing a lot of those reality type programs being watched at lunchtime on mobile phones or lunchtime on tablets. And so the opportunity, so that's probably the interesting thing that we can see, is that by device, and it'll change by time of day, by different pieces of content. And so then back to your question, then we can then dedupe it, and we can say, this week you're building reach across, but there's X% that we're watching multiple episodes. One of the things we always looked at was there was a declining number of episodes. So say over 10 episodes of The Voice, the average person, if you look just at linear, might have only watched 3 or 4 episodes. When you throw the BVOD back into it, they might have watched 6, 7, or 8, right? It just was disconnected. And so I think from a programming point of view, we were kind of and it's probably back to the earlier question of why are we doing this? Because you need to understand how sticky that content is and why people are getting it and where they're getting it. And that's what all this comes to. So yeah, you can get reach, you can get frequency, you can get duplication across devices.
Okay, and then Nicola, from an agency point of view then, I mean, how do you use all this information to sort of optimize your planning and buying?
Yeah, so look, obviously, with VOS coming out, VOS will be incredibly important when you're looking at a total screen strategy. And I think you kind of need to break it down into two areas. So if we think about planning, it's really important that agencies, whether it's individual or holding group, have tools that exist that allow planning at a total screen level. And tools, importantly, to Michael's point, that use gold standard. And that's really important, particularly when you're going through the planning process, that can deliver to specific reach methodologies, reach requirements, incremental reach, but of course budget allocation, and that's across free to air, that's across BVOD, but it's also then bringing in VOD and also pay TV. So in the first instance, making sure that sort of VOS can work in tandem with those on a planning level. I think from a buying perspective, and when we get there in terms of I know we're going to talk about a universal sort of buying approach, universal buying platform. I think where VOS again becomes really important is that, from a buying perspective, you still have to consider that, TV is that sort of mass demo buy specific to peak main channel. Then we can buy addressable audiences, sort of within an automated world. I guess one of the challenges, you don't have that universal application of data sets yet within the broadcasters and automated world, and some broadcasters are further along the journey of that automated world. But I think what becomes really interesting is when you start to look at TV demo buys, enhance them potentially with like affinity indexes from research, and then combine it from a programmatic buyer perspective to really start to get a full line of sight or full view of how you plan and buy across each of those screens, and VOS is absolutely integral to that.
Okay, and Michael, I mean, just run us through what exactly you can buy against today if you're using VOS, and then maybe give us some sort of long-term insights into some of the things that Nicola mentioned, like, buying against attributes and intent to purchase, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so in the first instance, I think Nick mentioned,
Michael,
for the agencies.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't hear you for a second, but carry on.
In the first instance of VOS, when the data starts coming into the agencies in September, October of this year, it'll be effectively used as a planning tool to measure co-viewing and to measure the incremental reach, as we spoke about earlier on. But the evolution of that, and we're very impatient, much to Doug's frustration, is the ability to be able to buy audiences across linear television and BVOD as well. And that'll require, via OzTam, us to align on a range of audience segments as an industry, which we're well down the path of doing, and then engaging with a number of third-party data suppliers who will fuel, if you like, the data that those segments or that we're able to recognize as a result of those segments. So that's really important, I think, for two reasons. One, alignment against the audience segments that you'll be able to buy across platform. And then, of course, the ability to buy them. And I think, in the first instance, it's a planning tool only. And the reason that is because the data that will come down the pipe from Nielsen into the agencies will be 1,000 times greater than the data that they currently receive. So the agencies aren't set up to do that. And that was one of the realizations that, as sort of one of the broadcasters in Australia, and there are four majors, we realized that we needed to take on some of that responsibility to work with the agencies to help them take advantage of today's television across all of its platforms. So, we've started a process of engagement with agencies. We're into the analyze phase now to understand exactly the requirements of the agencies and the system requirements that they have, so that we can build that and provide it to them. And, that will be one stage on a journey that we will go on from where we are today, where television is bought in a certain way. Quite frankly, it's become too difficult to buy, and we need to make it easier, to a point sometime in the future where, television will become a platform right alongside the other platforms. And that's somewhere in between those two places we will go on a journey together. We're well progressed in terms of building, in terms of planning for the build of a technology platform, and we've got broad alignment through the industry, which I think is really critical. And for those, you know, that are listening to this from other markets, the ability to align, I think, at an industry level through an industry body, like in Australia, it's Think TV, to have an aligned group like OzTam, and to have broadcasters who are philosophically aligned to where the industry is headed is really important.
So just to be clear, I mean, the ambition is that you would be able to make one buy across multiple broadcaster inventory, both digital and broadcast linear. That could be audience-based as well as demo-based.
Yeah, we're going to build a piece of technology that makes TV easier to buy. You'll be able to buy live linear, live streaming, and video on demand, all from one platform across all of the television inventory sources that exist in Australia. Now, you know, as I think about that, and I think it's a question that Nick and I and the rest of our industry talk about a lot, is who will buy this? Because television buyers will buy television plus BVOD, I suspect, together using the VOZ database to maximize the reach that they can extract from the market at any point in time. But they're largely buying that together for the purposes of maximizing reach. Whereas over here, you're going to have digital buyers, and digital buyers are predominantly buying BVOD for middle to bottom of the funnel objectives, consideration, conversion, using our first party data and delivering addressable solutions. They're buying it through a desk and they're using a DSP. And I don't suspect that changes. I think over time, these things do come together. And that's sort of the grayness that I suppose that exists between where we are today and this future state where television becomes a platform in its own right.
And all the broadcasters in Australia, all the major broadcasters are on board with this, aren't they? So it's very inclusive in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, we are fiercely competitive, but we're also, you know, aligned to the future of, we're passionate about television in all of its forms delivered across all of these platforms. And we are, you know, in agreement around the types of things that we need to do. Of course, you know, moving there is, we're all impatient. We're trying to get there as quick as we can. And I think we're doing a pretty good job. Like a lot of the initiatives that you've heard us speak about today, independent measurement across platform, CoViewing, the creation of a technology platform to make television easier to buy, the alignment under Think TV to promote and prove the effectiveness of the platforms working in combination. These are all things that we've achieved in the last sort of 3 to 4 years. And like I said, I really feel like we're only at the beginning of the journey. There's a lot more to do, and we're trying to get there as quick as we can.
Yeah. So Nicola, I mean, today, presumably you would use the VOZ data and then go out to each broadcaster and buy your linear or digital inventory that you want. But I mean, do you sort of buy into the vision of a one platform where you could do that buy all together across them all quite easily?
Yeah, look, ultimately our role, you know, as an agency working with our clients is to ensure that clients' core objectives are delivered, are prescribed from the beginning, are delivered and implemented sort of end to end. That's what our core goal is done. You know, and I think by having a platform like this and all things equal, then you can align on buying and delivery KPIs with the client, and you can deliver accordingly. You know, and I think that's what this platform is all about. And in all honesty, the industry has come together in a really supportive way to try and work through, in the first instance, what a centralized buying platform should work. To Michael's point, many people in our industry at the moment buy a lot of you know, online video inventory programmatically. So how do we combine that with a linear TV buy underpinned by VOZ? So I think, you know, it's absolutely seen as game changing. To Michael's point, it's a journey that we go on. You know, we have clients that we work with that are either local, global, regional clients, have varying needs, varying KPIs that need delivery to, you know, whether that be just on sort of campaign KPIs or cost KPIs, whatever they are. So anything that we can have that makes sure that we can have a fundamental delivery of those in as an efficient way as possible, I think is a real positive for the industry. I think the other thing to Michael's point is that we obviously are also working very closely with the MFA, so the Media Federation of Australia, who are very close to the project. So we have ongoing dialogue and really robust conversation and discussion. And I think moving forward, the key is going to be where we do come across any speed bumps or challenges, that we try and work through them as quickly as possible. Because, you know, one thing we have learned during this period is that time is of the essence, and our world doesn't stand still. So, yeah.
Okay, and Doug, is this the basis for a total audience currency? Is VOZ the basis for a total audience currency, Doug? Okay, Doug, can you hear me?
Sorry guys, I've lost.
Okay, okay. Can you hear me now?
Oh, I got you.
Okay, is VOZ the basis for a total audience currency?
Yes.
Yeah, short answer, short.
It is for the linear.
He did that on purpose.
I didn't. It is because I think if you look at most markets around the world, and people are measuring linear one way and then BVOD another way, and adding the time shift over there, and everything was measured in silos, but it just hasn't come together into one to give you that clear view. And it's a clear view on programming, and it's a clear view on campaign measurement as well. And then it gives you all the other capabilities. The way we set it up is to add in those things like advanced targets and segments. And if we agree on those as an industry, then we can put things in like car buyers and things and change the game a bit. But you just have to start somewhere. You've got all the tools in there. And if you don't have, you know, and I think it's to Steve-O's point about the collaboration, and he does push hard, I can guarantee you that. You've just got to take, if you try to wait until everything's perfect, you're not going to get anywhere, because this stuff does take a little bit of time, but you have all the components there. And if you don't have a component, build it quickly and then piece it together and make this thing work. And that's where we're at now.
Okay, well, let's just finish off then with some very quick answers, and any lessons that you think could be taken from Australia for other markets, or any tips that you would give people who are trying to achieve a similar thing. So let's start with you, Nicola, and then just go round to Michael, and then finish with Doug. Only sort of 30-second answers.
It's the collaboration piece, and it's also doing the due diligence ahead of time, you know. So I know that the broadcasters spend a lot of time speaking to agencies to understand exactly what they required. Was the project going to be useful, etc., etc. I think as well, you know, obviously to Steve-O's point, you know, Doug obviously has quite a lot of people very excited about the project that he's worked on. I think milestones and being really clear about those milestones, and also just really honest about where we're at in terms of the project, is also super helpful, because as Michael pointed out, you know, you're talking about a very, very, very big data set that Doug is creating. You know, when you're thinking about agency systems or client systems or even broadcast systems, you need to be able to make sure that you're running those projects in parallel to be able to ingest, plan with the data, etc. So I think it's just about that real solid collaboration up front, honesty about key priorities, potential challenges, and how you work through them.
Okay, and Michael?
There's three things, I think. You know, media owners the world over are fiercely competitive. So point number one is, I think everybody you need to leave your egos at the door. You need to collaborate. That would be point number one. Point number two is you need to build something for tomorrow, not today. If you build it for today, by the time you've built it, it's yesterday's news. So you've got to be quite visionary, I think, in terms of what you're trying to achieve. And then the final piece would be, you've got to go quick. You can't afford to wait. Time is not on our side. You've got to move.
Okay, and Doug?
I take it more from a research point of view. I take both their points. We probably did go to the market and sold the big vision early, and we probably could have done a better job at explaining where we were along the way and the milestones. And it does take time, but you got to start somewhere. So from a research point of view, if you look at linear, as I mentioned earlier, one of the best things we ever did was increase our sample by 50% in the face of fragmenting market. And now it's come to fruition from COVID that we've got those extra households, but you need a big sample. You're not going to get rid of people meter samples to get those demographics. The next piece, that if the market's out there that hasn't measured BVOD yet through SDKs and getting their broadcasters to tag up, do it as fast as you can, because you'll want full coverage across all the devices, across every platform, iOS, Android, gaming devices. You just want to get all those minutes of BVOD in. The third piece I would say is make sure you start working on harmonizing your metadata. So program names and understanding, when we first started the BVOD measurement years ago, what a broadcaster would call a piece of content on iOS was sometimes different to Android. And so we've done a very good job over time piecing that together. And then you got to make sure that what you call it on BVOD is similar to or the same as TV, so you can stitch it all together and get that. So metadata is very important as well. And then the next piece that we have been working on is stitching all these things together. And a router meter or a streaming TV meter helps. I think most markets, advanced markets, are heading down that path. We were in the middle of an expansion of what we call a streaming TV meter. Nielsen were installing just when COVID hit. We still have been installing. So we're close to 3,000. That gives us all that co-viewing. And then I think the next one is start talking about what's important in terms of third-party data suppliers and what the industry can agree upon and what's going to be important for both sides from planning and buying, and in terms of the data sets that are out there and what's common or what the industry is really going to want, and settle on at least a couple and make sure that works. So we've put some of that advanced target stuff on there now, and we can feed it in. So we know we can fuse other data sets on there. So we've tested that. We just need agreement, and collaboration is going to come again. So those are probably my 4 points. And then, resource it up and go as fast as you can, because, it does take some time to build.
Okay, well, there's some really practical advice there. So thank you very much, all of you. And thanks for joining us and talking us through it. It's a great project. And it's really good of you to join us today.
Thanks, John.
Welcome. Thank you.
Cheers.